Molefe, Anoj Singh and other former top Transnet executives have been granted that 50,000 rand bail in the Palmridge Specialised Crimes Court. They were arrested this morning in connection with the Trillian payment saga involving locomotives. Transnet allegedly paid Trillian over 90 million rand for organising a 30 billion rand loan to help buy more than 1,000 locomotives in 2015. That figure ballooned to 54 billion, according to the state capture report. Molefe was the group chief executive and Singh was the chief financial officer at the time. Former Transnet group CEO Gama and 4 others also appeared in the same court on charges of contravening the Public Finance Management Act, corruption and money laundering. The matter has been postponed until the 14th of October. One of the accused, Eric Wood, had his matter postponed to the 7th of September to amend his bail conditions.
At the same time, the National Prosecuting Authority has outlined the charges that the accused are facing.
We're looking at 2 particular transactions, but all pertain to the advisory services around the 1064 locomotive deal at Transnet. So this also includes the 93.4 million that was initially paid to Trillian, and then a specific portion of that then paid to Albertine through our allegations as to why the accused are here. The next amount is about 305 million, which pertains to other irregularities or advisory services that pertain to the club loan, which also assisted in the getting of the 1064 locomotive deal. So that takes a grand figure to about 398.4 million that these particular accused stand accused for. The charges are breach of the Public Finance Management Act and fraud for the former execs and fraud and corruption for the others, barring Mr. Kubentharan Moodley, who stands accused of money laundering.
All right, let's discuss this further now with Pauli van Wyk, Scorpio Investigative journalist at Daily Maverick. Pauli, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. Let's start with the significance of these arrests. Does it take us any closer towards seeing a semblance of accountability in this locomotives saga?
Good afternoon. Yes, definitely. And I think answering your question, I should start with Judge Zondo's words, where he said that Molefe and Singh and Gama were the primary architects and implementers of state capture at Transnet. It doesn't get more important than this, except if we get the Guptas in the dock along with the accused as well. It's definitely a seminal moment. It's an important moment for the investigating directorate at the National Prosecuting Authority as well. We have been asking questions for years now on when the NPA and the Hawks will get their act together. And this is an important step in the right direction.
And I'm going to get to some of the matters you've mentioned there. I mean, the NPA also being on trial when it comes to this one. At the same time, we're thinking about, some of the key role players here. But let's stay with today's proceedings. I mean, I was listening to some of the accused lawyers. They're demanding that the state must complete the investigation soon and furnish them with a complete docket and also play open cards with them about who else they're planning to call. Do you get a sense, though, that given the fact that the Gupta brothers have yet to be extradited back to South Africa, could we see a push for this matter to be struck off until they're back in the country?
The NPA, in my opinion, wouldn't have gone ahead if they had the Guptas necessary in South Africa to testify. So no, there's more than enough evidence. You will remember that Daily Maverick and along with our partners at Amabungani had written a lot about the locomotives deal, the Transnet deals and the Eskom deals, as well as Regiment's Capital, which is also in the dock at the moment, in our Gupta leaks period between 2016, 2017, 2018. Those were very important leaked data from the Guptas, and there's more than enough evidence. If the NPA used that, as well as their subpoena powers to look into bank records, cell phone records, they don't need alternative testimony from the Guptas to push this over the line.
And talking about records, Pauli, it's also going to be interesting to see how, the forensic auditors also do a trace. So when it comes to the money trail, I mean, one is thinking about the State Capture Commission. When we heard about the double invoicing, for example, that one matter where Trillian and regiments are invoicing and one is, hadn't even done the job.
Yeah, you summarized it really well. I think what's also under key lock here is how state business and private business is not separate anymore. We can see that, especially the locomotive deal, how predatory private business used the state to fleece their money. So private business should also come to the party here and offer their support.
And talking about that, there are also, of course, more accused that we are expecting to be added to this particular matter. How important, though, is it going to be for this matter to go all the way up to the top, especially when you think about, accountability even for those that were leading the Department of Public Enterprises at the time?
Yes, absolutely. Well, this is fairly high up to the top, right? So we're talking about Transnet's management. But when we talk about public works and we talk about the rest of government, it would always be a little bit more difficult to find a money trail there. And I would be very interested to see whether the Hawks and the prosecuting authority managed to get any cell phone records and banking records to know, because some of these transactions and unfortunately, or kickbacks had unfortunately been done in cash. And we all know that cash has amnesia, which is why it's used so often in these very dodgy dealings. But yes, we know that our president was involved in the matter. We know that other cabinet members were involved in the matter. And I think the FBI's model in America, where they would accuse an entire money laundering ring, that same model being used here might prove very valuable.
And I was listening to an interesting conversation earlier on the channel with one political analyst who says that for him, part of, the significance of this matter is that it goes a long way towards ensuring that those in power understand the seriousness of fraud and money laundering charges, even as far as going, to the violation of the PFMA. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. And if I can add on what he says, is that Brian Molefe, we must understand, was really a golden child of the ANC. He was, in fact, also primed to be our finance minister. And there a few things happened to prevent that. But he was primed to be in a leading position where they could fleece even more money. He was made a member of parliament, and our previous president really did rely on him to funnel more money to the Guptas and allow more deals. And I think we know that the rest of our members of parliament followed in the same footsteps, and they must be shaking in their boots when they see that there's really consequences now for wrongdoing.
And let's look then ahead to the 14th of October. What do you think is likely to happen here? I mean, could we see more accused being added to the matter, or could we see further even arguments by some of their lawyers who are saying that then it simply means that the state may have arrested them prematurely, because one would expect these arguments because they essentially are trying to get their clients free?
Yes, absolutely. I spoke to the investigating directorate this morning, and they said that they are in the process of rounding up more suspects and charging them as well. After they arrested everyone that they're confident they can charge, they will release the charge sheet, and we will be able to offer you much more detail about the specific incident and what they're charged for, and who the rest of their cronies would be. In the second instance is, of course, the lawyers on their part would try and do their best to assist their clients. And it's well-known tactic by now that you would rather attack the process as opposed to the merits of the case. It's going to be very difficult, especially here, to attack the merits of the case. So we can expect the lawyers to rather focus on how evidence was gathered, how the people were arrested, how far the investigation has gone so far, and trying to make out a case for premature arrest. That's going to be difficult. We know that not many of those cases and arguments have been successful in the past.
And it's going to be interesting to see, especially when one really goes through how this contract just ballooned and, the amount of money involved there. But let's leave it there with you for now. Thank you so much. Always a pleasure to speak to you. Thank you so much, Pauli. Do appreciate it. That is Pauli van Wyk, Scorpio Investigative journalist at the Daily Maverick.